I'm the Associate Speakers Director here at Campus Events, and I would like to welcome you to today's program. Before we get started, I would like to tell you a little bit about the program. It's one of a continuing series entitled Backstage, the Music and Its Makers. And incidentally, we will be continuing this series next Wednesday, February 24th. We will be presenting a panel discussion of some more of the top executives in the music industry. And the panel will feature Paul Collishman, who is currently the president of IRS World Media and the director of The Cutting Edge for MTV. We also have Tim Devine, who's the associate director of A&R at Capitol Records and who has just signed Flesh for Lulu at Capitol. We also have Brian Murphy, the president and founder of Arista Attractions. And also we will be joined by Paul Wasserman, who not only has worked with the Beatles, not only has worked with the Rolling Stones, not only has worked with The Who, but he's currently the publicist for U2. So, we're looking to a pretty solid program next Wednesday. The program will be moderated by Joe Benson, who is the veteran DJ of KLOS. Now, our guest today will be joined by a number of colleagues, whom I will let him introduce. So, let me get right into the nitty-gritty. The man you are all here to see has established himself as the driving force behind the music industry. He has involved himself in nearly every aspect, working as an artist, arranger, composer, producer, record and film producer, instrumentalist, and record company executive. In fact, to sum up his endless list of projects, accomplishments, awards, and projects would be pretty impossible in a 2-minute introduction. Besides, you already know of his work with Count Basie, Sammy Davis Jr., Herbie Hancock, Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Ringo Starr, Ray Charles, and a countless list of others. You know that he produced the soundtrack for Roots, The Wiz, and The Color Purple. You know of his multiple Oscar and Emmy nominations, his Ebony Music Awards as Jazz Musician and Arranger of the Year, and his designation as Rolling Stone Producer of the Year. You know that he produced Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, and you know that he followed it up with the best-selling album of all time, Michael Jackson's Thriller. You know that he convinced the top artists as well as the entire nation to check their ego at the door in the arrangement and production of We Are the World. You know who I'm about to introduce. Please help me welcome Mr. Quincy Jones.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. How you living? Large? We're very happy to be here this afternoon. This is going to be, I thought that was Jesse Jackson out there for a minute. I am. We I've been looking forward to this. I've found from past experience that it does not pay to come in with a real airtight program because I want to find out who you are first and what you want to know about. And another thing is when you mess with a dude that's been in the business for 40 years, you got a big problem because I started in 1948 and we have to establish your frame of reference versus mine because when I came up, we had 78 records. And we've gone all the way from 78 discs to DAT, to DAT now, to CDs and cassettes and everything. We've was personally involved and recorded the first electric bass, which has that and electric guitar has a lot to do with, mostly to do with today's music. The first synthesizer I think the public heard was in a theme I did for Ironside in 1964. So, and the people that are in today's business in film and music, I saw all come out of the gate, you know, right from Jump Street, from Barbra Streisand to Ray Charles. We were kids together, Marlon Brando in 1951. I mean, just everybody, Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, all as babies. And so I feel like one of the grand old men in the business, and I want to, in any way possible, to share that experience, but it's very difficult for me to structure that until you tell me what you would like to know. We're going to have some other people out here with us today that I'm happy that are joining me, and I'd like you to welcome them out. They'll tell you what their title means and what the job description after I give you this title. The first one is a little dude I've known since he was about 11 years old. He's a very talented music man. He found some of the initial songs. He found Christopher Cross, #1, at Warner Brothers. He found the first song for Like a Virgin for Madonna. I think Papa Don't Preach, and he got incredible ear. He's got incredible working knowledge of the record business. His father is the chairman of Warner Brothers Records, and as of yesterday, we got the good news that he's been appointed Senior Vice President of A&R. I'd like you to welcome Michael Austin.
How y'all doing? I'm still trying to figure out what my title means, but Artist and Repertoire A&R stands for Artist and Repertoire. It's the creative department within the record company. There's a whole realm of responsibilities that come along with that position, ranging from signing new talent to dealing with all of the artists on the roster, from the name artists, whether it be Prince, Madonna, Rod Stewart, or the new artists such as Jane's Addiction, the Jesus and Mary Chain, Depeche Mode, New Order, etc. As Quincy said, I think what makes the most sense here is to find out what you guys want to know about that process, what A&R is all about, what making records all about, and we'll leave it up to you to ask the questions, and we'll try and answer them as best we can.
I'd like to, Michael, I'd just like to also mention that Michael is Senior Vice President of A&R at Warner Brothers, and I have a record company called Quest Records. Some of the people on that roster are Patty Austin, James Ingram, Saida Garrett, New Order, etc., the Winans. And our label is a custom label, Quest, that is manufactured and distributed by Warner Brothers Records. And so Michael and Benny Medina, they also run my company too, and the mothership is Warner Brothers. And so that relationship has been very fruitful because of basically a great relationship together. I just wanted to get that in, so let you know that he's moonlighting. Our next speaker here today will be a man that has been with my film company and television company, Griot Entertainment Group, which also is office and headquartered at Warner Brothers Pictures Films. He's a very, very talented producer. He's an independent producer that's been working with us very closely. And some more good news we got yesterday. We just sold a series to NBC featuring Morris Day. I'd like you to meet an attorney and a very talented and inventive and innovative producer, Doug McHenry.
I'd like to thank Quincy for that generous introduction, and also it's good to see Michael, who I worked on really my first film with, that was entitled Crush Groove. And I think that really my role here is to some extent to speak about, to the extent that you want to hear about it, the relationship and the burgeoning relationship between film and music and film and television, because our experience with Warner Brothers on Crush Groove was really a good one, in which we had a record company that really supported the film company and went out there and really marketed the project the way it should be, and it doesn't always happen that way. So thank you.
So we want to get into your heads, and you get into ours, because I think my left and my right, that we should be able to come up with something helpful to any question that you might ask.
We have microphones located on either side of the auditorium, so if you do have a question, please feel free to stand up and go to one of the mics.
Oh, over there, okay.
Mr. Jones, on your right. Hi, my question is...
Where are you?
Right over here.
Okay.
My question is about We Are the World. How did you get so many famous artists and celebrities to leave their ego at the door in making that production?
Well, I don't think that statement really was necessary. It got blown out of proportion afterwards because the people that came there that night they knew exactly what they had to do, and they left it before they came through that door. You know, and it's an unfair shot to say that there were possibilities that something could have happened, but for the most part, everybody there, they were very professional, and I don't think I would have dealt with a project like that if it hadn't been for working with at least 50 or 60% of those people, because it's a very terrifying experience to go in there and not involve it and not understand where they're coming from. And 3 years before that, I think why they called me to do it, we were doing an album with Donna Summer, and we did a song called State of Independence. And on the choir section of that, we really had the prototype of We Are the World. And we had a third of the people there. It was Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, Michael Jackson, Dionne Warwick, James Ingram. So a lot of the people from We Are the World, that's where that idea was initially conceived.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Jones and company, I'm over here. It is certainly a great privilege and honor just to be able to speak to you all. I'm elated.
Great. Thank you.
I think that I can speak on behalf of a lot of the people here in the audience. I would like to know how difficult it is to reach the pinnacle of success in the music industry and the entertainment industry. It seems as though in most areas of life there's a well-defined and structured course in getting to the top. And in the entertainment industry, it seems like there's a lot of luck involved. How can we get there?
Well, you know, it's a good question. I think one of the quickest ways to miss getting there, though, is to aim at it. Because it doesn't really work that way. It's a strange, whether it's a karmic law, the universe, or whatever it is, though. But I've always said something that might sound very corny, you know. It's much better to spend time trying to get better than to get over. For instance, a lot of people I run into over the years, they write 2 songs and they spend 2 years trying to get those songs recorded. It would be much better to write 200 songs and let somebody else discover your ability of how good the songs are, because it's very important. We've got a different philosophy now than when I was young, because when I was young, all we thought about was getting better, because they barely had radio then. They didn't have television to communicate the world's progress or failures or whatever. We didn't see stars with limousines and etc. and television in the back of their cars when we were kids. It was only radio and word of mouth, and our idols were people like Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and Duke Ellington and Count Basie, etc. And we didn't think about the fame and the success and everything else. All we thought, at that time there were only 5 record companies. Anybody that recorded was almost a legend. That's different today.
Sure is.
So, yes, it is. A legend in your own mind. And so the background was a lot different for us then. We just thought about copying Miles Davis solos and listening to Charlie Parker and listening to Duke Ellington's saxophone section, and we only thought about just becoming a good musician or a good singer or whatever it was. And that's a very important part of your life, is to just get good first. Because, man, if you get real good, I promise you the rest is going to come easy. Another thing, not easy, but it will be on the way. Okay. Another thing I think that you have to remember, too, is something that is more of an ideology people are more aware of today, and that is what visualization is all about. And it's one basic spiritual truth, you know, is that the laws of thought are the laws of destiny. And anything that you really believe with feeling It will come into your life, good or bad, but think of the positive side. And it's very important to remember that. You have to see yourself at the end of your goal. And so this is like asking somebody if they want to be happy. You better really be sure you know how to be happy. And what you have to picture yourself in an actual day of happiness from morning till evening. And it's not a very easy task. You know, you have to just picture yourself, what do you really want? And so you have to define that. And once you define that, your subconscious mind, with visualization, will take you there. That's what I believe.
Excellent answer. Thank you very much.
Hello, we're going back over. Hello,
Hello.
back over here. I have a question for Michael Austin. I was wondering, how do you decide how long to support an act? Meaning, since usually an act doesn't break even till the second or third record, what are the factors that you consider saying, well, we're going to keep on going and supporting them and they will make it, or you say they're not going anywhere, drop them?
There are a number of variables, but ultimately it's the belief in the talent. If you feel that you have an artist or a band that ultimately is going to continue to grow and develop, and you believe in that talent, then you stick with it. That's one thing about the record company I work for. We have a number of artists on the roster who either break even or even lose money, but we believe so strongly in that talent and that they should be making records that we stick with them regardless.
Thank you.
Back over here, please. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for coming today. It's very, very nice for us to listen to your comments. I'd like to get back to the point Mr. Jones raised on the songs. As producers, one of the hats you wear is a judge of songwriters. And as a songwriter myself, I realize that we have three sets of very powerful ears sitting up there. And I would like to know, beyond the points of writing and keep writing, which I strive to do, is there any minimum requirements for the things that you hear if I were to give you a tape, as far as quality of demo, not suggesting anything, as far as quality of demo or certain things that automatically turn your guys' ears off to certain things, be it, do I need a 24-track demo for you? Or is there certain lyrics that are not commercially viable now? Or is there certain music that is not commercially viable now? Or is it just a good song is a good song?
A good song is a good song. And you know what? And it always will be melody. The one thing that has remained constant throughout the 40 years I've been in the business is the melody. I've seen the bottom, the rhythm section. This is, by the way, this is Benny Medina from Warner Brothers. He's worked with Michael Austin and the A&R department at Warner Brothers Records, and he also runs Quest. Right on time. Maybe. But back to the answer. For me, and I'm sure that some of the other people on this panel will feel that it's not necessary for an elaborate demo, because there's the power of a song. I have an unbelievable respect for the song. To me, and I get killed for saying this, but I will choose one good song over 20 great singers, because a great singer can't make a bad song happen, but a great song can make a sad singer really number one.
I hear that.
And this happens all the time. So the song... The song is the king. It really is. I mean, a song like What's Love Got to Do With It could have been number one. Tina did an incredible job. I can't take that from her, but so could Natalie Cole or Shaka, Valerie Simpson. 25 ladies could have had a number one record with that song. It's a powerful song. And it's back to what we said before. Melody is the king. That's what it's all about. And anytime you really hear a good groove, a lot of people get into a lot of good grooves, and grooves are a dime a dozen, because with drum machines now, anybody can get a groove, Yeah. Michael's chimpanzee Bubbles can turn on a drum machine, Because it's programmed in Japan, you know.
I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, with the technology becoming as sophisticated as it is, it's easy to be fooled. I mean, you can get caught up in production and gimmickry, but ultimately, it's the song and the performance that's going to really say something.
Thank you very much. You're very inspirational to me as a writer. Thank you.
Over here.
Yo.
Hi. My question is pretty much, is the best way, or is it more desirable to a record company to see a band that is doing a lot of recording and doing a lot of songwriting, or is doing a lot of live dates and maybe has a couple demos? Should the focus be on live or on basically coming up with good songs in a recorded format?
Well, I think first of all the good songs clause is mandatory regardless of whether or not it's a live performance or you're going in the studio. That's just the first thing that you should always target yourself at. But in today's musical world, just as Quincy had just pointed out, there seems to be so much electronic musicianship, people who are at home programming and writing songs, that the band itself as a unit, and particularly in black music, seems to be something that is not being developed as much as it should. I just had a conversation this morning with somebody about it, because in going around and really trying to find bands, it's sort of a double-edged sword there, because if you're a band, it's really hard to make a living, and unless you're doing top 40 stuff at the Hungry Tiger, you know, and that's not really what everybody wants to do. But to answer your question, I think that if you have the networking and the ability to have a place where you can rehearse, you can get together as musicians and write great songs, there's something magical that happens in that, because you get the interaction of everybody's different ideas. You know, your bass player, your drummer, your keyboard player, there's a lot of influences that go into that. If you are lucky enough to have a place where you can work out those rough edges and still get out there and perform that music, you're going to double sell yourself. Great songs and a great performance, you can't really lose that way.
All right. Thanks a lot.
I guess it's over here. What's happening, Mr. Jones? How you doing?
What's up?
What's up, cats?
Homeboy.
I forgot your names, but I'm sorry about that. My question was, like, how do you find, like, the singer, the sound of the 80s or the 90s? Like, do you go out to clubs, you know, or check out street singers, or, like, what does it take to become a James Ingram, a Patty Austin, you know, so they can get on your record label?
Identification. The Russ Titleman sent me a cassette probably about 6 years ago of a song that was written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. He sent it to me for the song. Russ has a great song sense. He produces Shaka Khan, he did Stevie Winwood, he does, you know, a lot of people. He has a great song sense, and he sent me this song. He said, this sounds like something that Quincy would like. And I got a double treat on that, because the song was Just Once, and the demo singer was James Ingram. So it's about identification. What knocked me out about James, he was really he didn't think he was a singer. He said he was a piano player with the Coasters and Ray Charles. He said, I can't sing. I said, that's what you think. And he said, I sound like I got whiskey on my voice. I said, that's what I like about it. It's like Ray Charles was like that when he started. It was just a personal identification, because basically, if you notice, and as emotional as we get in this business, we still have to use our brains too. All of the big singers, I mean big singers, 2 bars or 1 bar, when you first hear that sound, you know exactly who it is. And it's not a good comment on the singer if you get through and you say, I wonder who that is, if they sing for 3 minutes or 4 minutes of a song. Because most great singers are instrumentalists. You can hear 1 or 2 bars and you know exactly who it is. And that's what I heard in James, or the potential for that. And sometimes they come to you raw and you have to just keep going. But basically it's about identification. And if you've got a singer with a lot of feeling and identification singing a great song, you know, that's as good as it gets. And I must tell you too that the styles are constantly overlapping. You know, we talk about the music of the 80s and 90s, but man, there's a whole lot of music of the 60s and 50s and 40s in that music, you know. So it'll also be good to go back and define the past. That's what Stevie Wonder's done. He knows everything that happened. That's why he wrote Sir Duke.
So what's the best advice you can give someone who, you know, sings in the mirror all day and wants to be a superstar, you know?
Well, there's probably about 30 million of those.
Yeah. I mean, but what distinguishes one from the other?
Seriously, it's the energy, you know, and your conviction. It takes the energy that you believe in yourself to try to, and you have to be, people that write songs or sing, they have to help us a little bit too, and not just indiscriminately send songs in without giving it that acid test. The acid test is put on the Alexander O'Neill record, you know, put on the Morris Day record, put on the Roger Troutman record, or whoever it is, and put them right up against Short Demo, man, because that's the way it is. I mean, the people are not going to say, this one's been around 10 years and this has only been out last week, because the guy from last week can come and blow that guy who's been out there 20 years away. It happens all the time. And so you have to develop a creative side and a judicial side, and totally separate from each other, but you have to really be hard on your judgment of what your work is about. It's very important. And when you do that, everybody that listens is very aware that you are an aware person that understands what you're dealing with, and that your record has to go right up against Stevie Wonder. I mean, that's the reality of it, and you have to be aware of that too, the first one.
Thanks a lot.
Back over here. I'd like to know how the film production Crushed Groove got together.
That was, I'd really like to relate the answer to that question to the music side. We recognized that there was a phenomenon in music about 3 years ago called hip-hop, and we were actually kind of late in recognizing that. And what we decided to do was that there's certain types of musical subcultures that really have interesting characters, like Brazilian music, for example, and other things. And then there are other musical subcultures that really don't. And so once we identified that subculture and the music, because the music really pervaded the lifestyle, the dress, the language, the way the people spoke, we knew that we very much wanted to do a film on that subject matter. And what was interesting about that project is that we actually went and got the music together first, because we made a commitment not to use actors so much, but the people who actually lived that lifestyle. And an inspiration for us in getting that project done was actually we went to Michael's father and we said, listen, we want to do this music and we want to do this film. And Michael's father then called the film company of Warner Brothers and arranged for us, provided that they got the soundtrack, arranged for us to go in and make a deal with the film company. And that's why I said in the beginning of my remarks, that's a really good example of how the record and the film side of a major company can come together on a project that is kind of suspect. I mean, not a lot of people were running around trying to do a movie on rap music. And it was really the strength of those both of those entities coming primarily from the music side that made that project happen.
Hello, over here.
Yo.
Do you mind if I change the subject just a little bit? Okay. This question is for Mr. Jones, and I was just curious. About 3 years ago, you were the co-producer and music composer for The Color Purple, in my opinion, is one of the greatest movies of all time. And it deservedly garnered 11 Academy Award nominations. And I just wanted to know, what can you honestly say you believe caused its shutout at the Oscars almost 2 years ago into getting no Oscars at all?
Well, honestly, I think two things happened. One, whatever the relationship between the Academy and Steven Spielberg is all about, it would have been an embarrassment to vote for 2 or 3 of those categories when you have 11 Academy Awards and not a director, and not nominate the director. There's 300 or 400 directors on the directing branch at the Academy that decided that he was not fit to be nominated for whatever reason. And there's 7,800 members of the Directors Guild that said that he was, and they gave him the award. So there's a big conflict already, and very embarrassing. So I think if they had made a show of, if we had won 4 or 5 of the Academy Awards that year, it would have been very embarrassing because the director wasn't present. So I think they wanted to just shove it under the rug. Number 2, I think with the controversy surrounding it, with a lot of the statements the NAACP made, that everybody was caught in a kind of a catch-22, a very unfortunate catch-22, and everybody was embarrassed, scared, reluctant, and paranoid, and they just tried to shove it under the rug. They tried to sweep it underneath the rug. But I'm glad that the picture was made. The picture grossed almost $150 million, which means that there'll be more serious black films made, and hopefully one picture that has a Pulitzer Prize won't have to carry all of the imagery and burden of the whole race on its shoulders, because hopefully we'll have more of a repertoire. So there'll be a bad father and a bad mother and a bad child, just like the rest of the literature is what that's all about. And we went with unknown actors and actresses, and I'm happy with what happened with Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey, and I'm glad it was made.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a tennis match going back and forth between the mics and everything. I have 2 questions for you. Whoa. I have 2 questions for you, Mr. Jones. One is exactly, you were producer on Color Purple, exactly as producer, what did you do with relation to the film? And the other question has absolutely nothing to do with the first question. When Bad was released in August, amidst all that hype and everything, MTV went crazy with August 31st, this is when it's going to go out, all that. I was surprised when the first song I heard on the radio was I Thank You. This gentleman remembers the name of the song, and I couldn't. I Just Can't Stop Loving You. I was going, okay, I'm going to hear it, because the DJ's going, and the new song from Michael Jackson's coming right up. And so they, I listened to the song, and I liked it, and I was going, why don't I like this more? Why isn't this what I was expecting? So you can answer those in any order you like.
I'll answer the last one coming right up.
Okay.
If it was what you were expecting, that would mean that you had heard it before, wouldn't it? So,
yeah.
I think one of the strong parts of the record business is still a very theatrical arena, and the one thing that you will not stay in the business long if you do is play what you expect to hear, which will be very predictable. And so an artist like Michael that gets into that stratosphere, like 41,000 feet like that, you have to be very theatrical in almost everything you do in and outside of the studio, which he certainly is. And his record releases have to be the same way, and it certainly, you're not going to come out with an up-tempo tune that can anyway follow the expectations of Thriller, and so you have to erase tape and start from the beginning, and that's what we did with that record, and the whole release pattern. And as it stands now, we're going on our 4th #1 single with Man in the Mirror, which I think is the best song in the album.
I agree with you. Definitely.
On Color Purple, Peter Guber came to me and said, there's a book I want to talk to you about, and I want you to do the score, because he knows I wasn't interested in that. I want you to be involved. And at first they talked about maybe writing music to the poems, and I didn't think that was a very good idea. So I said, why don't you just let me have this? He said, I can't get the rights to the book unless you're involved with Alice Walker. I said, okay, just let me have the book and run with it. I'll do the whole thing. And sometimes ignorance is great, because if you don't know what you're doing, you just go with the heart. And he said, well, who do you have in mind for director? And I said, Steven Spielberg. And he laughed. So my job at that time for the next 11 months was to get Steven Spielberg to forget about the other 5 pictures that he was planning to do immediately, and everybody's saying it wouldn't happen, and start to think about a cast and so forth. When he came aboard, naturally, he's the top of his field. He's going to be in charge. And he was generous and let me get involved. And I found Oprah Winfrey in Chicago, and had a lot of things that he would let me contribute to the film, in terms of style and things that were dramatic things that weren't just involved with music. And it's from a spiritually and technically, he lets you get as involved as you can, because a picture that size, has room for everybody to give all they've got. So, I hope that answers it.
It is, just out of curiosity, why Spielberg? Why either not a black director? I know there's not as many out there, but that, or B, possibly a director who has films that may suggest more something. E.T., 1941, Jaws, these films do not say to me, I think I'll have somebody direct a sensitive picture like Color Purple.
Well, well, I don't agree with that. I don't think E.T. was an insensitive picture.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's not.
Well, Close Encounters
There's definitely no immediate connection between Space Age, Flyboy, Raiders of the Lost Ark action, and Color Purple.
But I know, but that's because you're dealing with a stereotype, and I don't even like it when it happens to me, when I did In Cold Blood and In the Heat of the Night, and they say Quincy's a great suspense composer, and the next year I did Cat Chris Flower and Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice to be a comedy writer that year, and then Westerns after that, so they can't put that label on you. Steven Spielberg is a great filmmaker. And we're putting a film on the screen, you're talking about a filmmaker. And it's a man that's like a creative general that's in charge of a lot of decisions, and a lot of people, a lot of talented people, and a film that that has a span of 31 to 33 years is not a film that you go to a second lieutenant with. You have to go to a general. And I think Steven's one of the best generals there is. And I was very aware that there may be sometimes a sacrifice between blackness and filmmakingness. But when you're making a film, you have to go with filmmakingness.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm over here. With your last comment about Man in the Mirror, that brought to mind a question I had about crossover artists. I recognize that you started I'm not sure if it's very new, but a new branch, a new type of branch of your music in Quest Records. I understand that you also signed the Winans, who appeared on Michael Jackson's album. Could you define what a crossover artist is, and is a gospel artist a new field or new area of talent that you seem to be tapping?
I didn't get the question. Is the gospel artist what?
A new area of talent you seem to be tapping in the music industry.
I think gospel music is the mothership of all pop music. Gospel music that's all we have ever had to tap, basically. I did jazz, everything, rhythm and blues, everything else that started with gospel music. I don't see how you can get past it. In 40 years we've been tapping gospel music. I think that's what American music is, the foundation of American music. Aretha Franklin, Dinah Washington, Ray Charles, straight on. That's what it's all about. The blues came straight out of the church.
Yeah, I agree with that, totally. But with with the Winans specifically, do you think that they're more? What made them stand out as opposed to some other groups, I guess, that you could have used in Quest Records?
They're great. They're just great, and they have, what I call a genetic blend They really do. They understand each other, and they're just great. You know, they sing really together. They're emotional. They move me. That's all I can say. That's all I go by is my goosebumps. They move me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're running a little short on time, but we have
talking
such
too
excellent
much.
questions that we'd like to continue with at least the people that are up here. So if you could at least make the questions that you do have as short as possible, but we would like to continue with the program if that's okay with you.
I have two questions. I hope I can have them both answered. The first one is to Mr. Medina and Mr. Austin. And I'm a singer-songwriter, and I just got signed to a major label, Polygram. And I'm really excited about it because we just did an album and a video for it. And
Are you Wu? Are you
yeah.
Wu?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good record you got.
Thanks. But I'm really excited about it. And we've, like I said, I did an album and a video, and the creative part is done. But I want to know the best ways that I can promote it, because I'm starting to do like radio promos around the country and with the video, and I really want to make this big, and I don't want to be just a flash in the pan. And I wanted some advice on A&R and promotion and how I can best make use of the commitment that I have with my company, and describe how you work with your artists at your company.
Well, the first thing you should do is get off Polygram. I'm just kidding. Michael and I both really on projects that we're very, very closely involved with, and hopefully you have that sort of A&R person or connection there with the people that you're involved with at Polygram. You should use them because what they really become is sort of a mouthpiece there for the company, and a lot of energy is generated out of that area to all departments of the company. And in your involvement with them, what you really want to try to do is to make sure that they understand what the focus is of your record, how you want to be presented in a marketing sense, and how you want to get to the public, so that as other things come up, other conversations, whether it relates to the type of promo tours you want to do or the type of video presentation that you want to have, you need to make sure that somebody there always understands what Jerry Wu wants to be. It's Jerry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wants to be presented as, because you're actually very, very unique in that you have a very, really soulful sound, which is not necessarily what you'd expect from an Oriental, right? I mean, you sound like a really, really strong young black vocalist. I remember the first time I heard your remake of Lonely Girl, which was actually a real favorite song of mine. I was really surprised once I actually connected with the visuals on you, because I wasn't. So now that's something that you have to relate back to the consumer, because they won't have that identity when they first hear your record on the radio. That your company has to sort of focus in on how special you are ethnically with what you're doing creatively.
Okay, great. So you really think that I should get out there and really do a lot of live things and really get out there and tour?
Oh yeah, you should be seen. You should be seen, because that's going to work in your favor. Because of the contrast in types.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to help define who you are. And as Benny pointed out, it's important that you have someone inside the company who understands you, who understands your vision, and can spearhead that movement, get people motivated, and define who you are within the company. Also, a very important element is management, because they're going to be the liaison between your record company and the outside world. They're going to help make decisions for you, overall career planning and guidance. So it's critical that you have good, strong management who can deal with your record company and can deal with the whole entertainment community.
Okay, thank you. The second is directed towards Mr. Jones, and I just want to say I really enjoy your work, and I respect you and your work a great deal. And I know you've been around a lot. You've worked with like all the great artists of pop music, but how open are you with working with new artists? And
new artists?
I want to know, like...
if you've been in the business as long as I have, every artist I work with has been new. Juby Blake.
What are like some of the criteria that in the past you've used to decide, okay, am I going to work with this person or...
Well, Saida Garrett's a great example. Saida, we had an audition about 4 or 5 years ago to start a group called Deco. And we had 4 guys and a lady, and we auditioned 800 people, and out of 800 people we came up with Saida. And she has grown and grown and grown. I think she's one of the best lyricists in the country today. She's just, because she works hard. And her path, we got the right set of circumstances too. The group didn't work out, so we decided to go as a solo singer with her. She tried it at one album, didn't work out. They put it in the can. They wouldn't let it out. And that's really belief in an artist, because it wasn't good enough. They put it on the shelf until we regrouped, and we got lucky. And after Michael wanted Barbra Streisand and Whitney Houston on I Just Can't Stop Loving You, I said, Michael, have I got a lady for you? And she was on that record, and it helped open the doors so people aren't saying, Saida who, how do you spell it? And that's just the beginning, because, people didn't pay too much attention to that. She still has to prove herself, and then she did another song after that, Ever-Changing Times, from Baby Boom, and now she just finished an album with Rod Temperton produced that is a killer. But we have more fun working with new artists than anybody. I mean, that's the most fun there is to see your thing take off, and a new artist that nobody's ever heard of before, and somebody you believe in before anybody ever hears them. And that's happened to me with Johnny Mathis, a million people in my career. When you first hear them, and you say, man, I like the way they sound, and then 3 years later, millions of people, everybody knows who they are. That's the biggest thrill there is in the business, to me. Right?
Okay, I wanted to know if I could drop off my CD with you, too.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, gentlemen. I have a question about books. I know that there's no real way of just reading and finding out information on how not to fall into the pitfalls of the music business. But I read a book called Platinum Rainbow, and it woke me up quite a bit. And I was wondering if there were any other books that you could suggest that would be able to help, so that one wouldn't make those silly mistakes, or those mistakes that I guess maybe everybody makes, if I knew that you wouldn't make those mistakes.
There's a, what's the Songwriters Association? Association of Songwriters. What's the one that puts out they have a pamphlet called, a weekly called The Songwriter. Anyway, some of those, you should explore some of these the periodicals like that, because they have a whole list of books, the business of music. That's what this thing is all about, the creative and the business side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to first say that I think this is such a pleasure to be here today and have an opportunity to hear everybody speak. I believe the organization you're talking about is the National Academy of Songwriters?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and they put out a monthly magazine. It's really good. At any rate, this is a question directed towards Mr. Bendina, Mr. Austin, and Mr. Jones. I was reading an article today in Keyboard Magazine, actually, Quincy, where David Foster says some very positive things about his career and your influence on him. And in this article, he talks about how in today's marketplace, it costs 3 times as much to produce an album versus in the old days, let's say the early 60s. And that seems a little surprising to me, given the advent of the technology that we've all been talking about in MIDI, et cetera, et cetera. And if anybody could comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
Technology costs money.
Oh yeah, sure. Hardware costs money.
The instrumentation that that David is talking about a lot is very, very expensive. You know, when you're the synthesizers themselves. You know, given the fact that the majority of people who go in the studio, let's say for a first-time project, don't own all of that equipment. The advances in the electronic area with respect to the type of equipment that studios need to have to be state of the art is going to have a direct effect on the actual rates there of the studio time. The need right now in this period in the music world to come off as being so sonically brilliant takes a lot of time and a lot of expertise, and that in turn ends up costing a lot of money. On the other hand, this is also a time when some of the raggediest records are becoming some of the biggest hit records. You know, it's kind of like just which way you're going. If you're scritty polity and you're obsessed with sonically building a wall of sound, that's going to be very expensive. On the other hand, if you're doing these hip hop records that are just flying out of the stores, are really cheap. I mean, are being made in people's bedrooms. They're still making them off of 8-tracks. I mean, just it's the feel. You know, it has to do with the definition of the feel.
I mean, I think David Foster was talking about at his standards, a major production record, which requires a lot of time spent, a lot of experimentation. He's using top studio musicians who are very expensive, and as Benny pointed out, just through the normal course of inflation, costs have risen to a very extreme level. So records are quite expensive, the type of records that David Foster makes.
And they're also, he's dealing with artists in the caliber of where their reputations are on the line. Their reputations are expensive too. So they don't care how much it costs, you know, if their reputation's on the line, and the company feels the same way.
Thank you.
Thank
Hello.
you.
This side now. Okay, I spent some time in Germany, overseas, and in which time I saw Die Farbe Lila, which means the color purple. And I just wanted to say that the entire movie was in German. Imagine Whoopi speaking German.
No.
Everything except for Tata Vega singing Miss Seeley's Blues, which was in English. I'm glad they didn't touch that. But my question is I still have some friends over there. While being over there, I met a lot of really talented jazz musicians. In fact, one who's only 16 years old, trumpet player. And they all want to come to America and meet people like you and make, the big American dream. But I found that overseas, jazz is bigger than it is in our own country. And I was just wondering, is there anything that they can do because they want to make it and they want to come here and they're looking at me to be their liaison? Great. But what do you have to suggest for me to tell to them?
You know what? Going to Europe, forget about them coming here. Going to Europe is a great idea for a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans have gone to Europe and found their real true path to make it. I can mention a lot, like Donna Summer. Many people, Americans, have gone there. They couldn't get started here because especially a place like Germany, where they have a radar system over there. If anybody with any kind of voice comes around, I mean, there's no types of singers in Germany. They're all imported. So if an American or English singer comes in there, they're very welcome, and sometimes that can be a good foundation for a career, or any of the European countries, if you find your way. And there are no set rules. I'm talking about going the other way now. Americans trying to make it. There are no set rules. In terms of the Europeans coming here, I don't know what the answer to that is. For every success story, there's probably a different answer. I remember in 1957, we ran into this guy in Ankara, Turkey, when I was over there with Dizzy Gillespie, and he gave us an arrangement, and his name was Arif Mardin, and he was the son of a diplomat, and he went to Berkeley and went to Atlantic Records, and he's one of the best producers we have in this country now. So there's so many different routes, and I wish there was a simple solution to just say, here you go here, and you go there, and you go there. But it doesn't work like that.
But you believe that they do have the jazz connections over there more so than here. It's just that it's the stigma of Berkeley being in the States, of having all the musicians coming over from America into Germany to be the great, trumpet players, etc. But you do believe the connections are there just as well as here, or
what with jazz?
Yeah, with jazz.
The jazz is always recognized. Back in well, I guess 50 years ago, and a magazine called Orchestra Journal in Stockholm was the first jazz magazine in the world. They were 30 years ahead of America in recognizing it as an art form. Americans still don't understand jazz.
I noticed.
But Europeans have for years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Mr. Medea, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Austin. My question is in regards to New Order. First of all, Mr. Medea, in reference to electronic musicians and musicianship, where do you see New Order in that and not being a group? And I'll stop there. And then for Mr. Jones, why did you choose New Order personally to be on your label? And how's Blue Monday going? And I heard you're remixing that. And Mr. Austin, how do you think the commercial success of New Order is going to go in the 90s? Are they going to be a group of the 90s? How are they going to go?
I do think that they will continue to make real good records that'll continue to be successful through the 90s. I don't know if you know their history, but their first incarnation was a band called Joy Division. And they go back to the early 80s, and they've transcended through that period of time. They've reformed and formed New Order, and they continued to make viable music, and I feel they will continue on to make viable music. We just last week have certified their double album Substance Gold, which for a band that 2 years ago was considered a cult band is an amazing achievement. And I think that they're going to continue to go on to be a combination cult band that can achieve massive success.
In answer to the other question about how did we choose them, we didn't. They chose us. There was a documentary on BBC that they did, and David Geffen's label was after the band, and Hervé Zoff, a lot of people after the band, and they said, we want to be on this label. So we got lucky, and they chose this label.
Electronic musicianship, as far as those being a group, it's still very, very useful to have that interaction is really what I was talking about. If there are three keyboard players there and they're all using drum machines and keyboards, there's still a number of different influences that are coming in there. I wasn't saying that you should look at the electronics developments as a negative, as long as there's still a people connection that's getting involved there. It's like a lot of non-musicians are able now to sequence up bass lines that they could never play, that they probably never would have, just by, note for note for note for note. These guys are musicians first. Musicians first can take those things and add a new dimension to them. I sort of just am a little bit fearful of the people who buy a little synthesizer, buy a drum machine, and don't really understand music enough to know what they should be doing with it.
Yeah, I think the key words are creativity and originality in how you incorporate machines into your music.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I just wanted to thank our distinguished guests, and I hope you all join me in giving them a great round of applause.
Tom, before they leave, I'd just like to say, people talk about what do you do and everything. There's just a couple of thoughts I'd just like to pass before we go, since we're already here. You have a beautiful, beautiful future, and I've seen this evolution continue and continue. There's a beautiful future in the entertainment field, and I say entertainment because you can't just restrict it now to just, with the advent of MTV and music video, the game is all the same thing now. That's why we're in the film business, and we have some things on our board that we have a hip-hop pilot that's going to be on ABC on Saturday night. We have the Morris Day show that's going to be on NBC. We have a $30 million Pushkin film that we're doing with the Russians, and we have LL Cool J film. So I'm saying it is wide, wide open. So you have to think in terms of concepts. Don't let just a block of opportunity hang you up, because see, luck is still about preparation and being prepared. You got to be ready. Film and music is the future, I promise you. And so if you're talking about story concepts, you're talking about songs, they can all start to fuse and come together, because we're getting ready to hit some really beautiful things, 2,000 and 3,000 line high resolution tape. A lot of formats are going to change, but one thing that'll never change is the melody and a story. That's the whole thing, is all about a song and a story, man. And don't let that technology fool you. You better learn some music too, because a lot of technicians out there, you better go get some music and learn how to deal with the basics of music, because that's what the bottom line is. I've seen 40 years of all of this stuff change, but one thing that's never changed is the C scale. It's still here, man. It's been here 400 years and will be here 5,000 more. So get the basics under your control. Get yourself prepared and learn your craft, because learning how to sell your stuff and learning how to turn on a drum machine is not what's happening. It's part of what's happening, but the focus should be the song and the story. And I thank you for today.